how their confrontations created one of the most think Lakers Celtics, but with more punches thrown and fewer championships to show for it. Picture this. It is 1993. The NBA is still Jordan's league, and the New York Knicks have finally figured out how to be good at basketball again. Pat Riley, fresh off his Hollywood Lakers run, had transformed this franchise from the laughing stock that gave us the Patrick Ewing lottery conspiracy into a legitimate Eastern Conference powerhouse. They just won 60 games, earned the top speed, and Patrick Ewing was putting together the kind of season that made you forget he wasn't Hakeem Olajuwon. Their first round opponent? The Indiana Pacers. And I'm not talking about the Pacers who would later terrorize the palace of Auburn Hills or the ones who almost beat LeBron. I'm talking about the Pacers who were still trying to convince people they belonged in the same conversation as actual NBA teams. Sure, they had Reggie Miller, this skinny shooting guard from UCLA who could drain threes from the parking lot. But this was before Miller became Reggie Miller. Capital letters, Nick Killer extraordinaire. Back then, he was just Cheryl's little brother who happened to be pretty good at basketball. The kind of player you'd describe as solid and a good shooter, without realizing you were looking at a future Hall of Famer. The series opener at Madison Square Garden looked like exactly what everyone expected. A 107-104 Knicks victory that felt closer than it should have been. The Pacers have been down by 19 points in the third quarter. This should have been game over against a Pat Riley team, but Indiana kept clawing back, making it a one-possession game in the final minutes. Doc Rivers, yes, that Doc Rivers, back when he was still playing point guard instead of trying to manage Eagles in Los Angeles and Boston, delivered the most prophetic quote of the series. Dak was basically saying what every Knicks fan was thinking.
You seen that ad? Control the pawns to the left and to the right. +1 and -2, kind of a running forward, getting stronger game. It looks so fun. Then I just downloaded and gave it a try. But the game is nothing like the ad. Look, this ad. A soldier shooting the red minis and can upgrade the weapons. But it's a fake game.
What did you download? Try Tapping Belongs. Try Lastimore. Lastimore is the real game that was made by all the fake ads. Look, here it is. Just like the ad.
Alright, here we go. It's just me, though. We need more people. There we go. Oh my god, I can technically get infinite people. Okay, let's keep shooting all these guys. There's a big guy back there. I think I'm gonna need more troops, yeah. Oh, maybe I can get the thick boys too. Let's see. Oh my god, yes. Alright, now we can easily take down the big guy, maybe? Ah, we did it. Okay, we lost some troops, though. Let's see if we can get some more. Perfect.
We just let these guys hang around way too long, and it was the first sign that maybe Indiana wasn't going to roll over and play dead like everyone expected. Patrick Ewing saved the day with a clutch 17-foot jumper with 10.8 seconds left, then made the defensive play of the game on Reggie Miller. But even then, you could sense something brewing between Miller and the Knicks during timeouts. Miller would sidle up John Starks and whisper things like, "You can't guard me," and they should have sent someone else. And Starks, who had this perpetual chip on his shoulder from going undrafted and bagging groceries before making the NBA, was the perfect target for Miller's psychological warfare. It was like watching someone poke a sleeping bear with a stick, not realizing the bear was about to wake up very, very angry. The real fireworks came in Game 3. By this point, the trash talk between Starks and Miller had escalated from friendly playoff banter to genuine animosity. These guys legitimately did not like each other. With 8:48 left in the third quarter, after an entire game's worth of verbal warfare, Starks finally reached his breaking point. Right there in front of 16,000 people and a national television audience, John Starks launched his head directly into Reggie Miller's face. Not a little bump, not an accidental collision, a full-on headbutt that would have been a hockey player proud. Miller showing the kind of acting skills that would make him perfect for TNT broadcasts years later. Immediately crumpled to the floor like he'd be shot by a sniper. Right, and I'm sure Miller spent the whole game complimenting Starks on his shooting form and asking about his family. Had been in Stark's ear all series, reminding him about every missed shot, every turnover, every time he'd gotten beaten off the dribble. By game 3, Starks had simply had enough of Miller's voice. Starks got immediately ejected, and the turned a close game into a blowout. It was one of those moments when you could literally feel the momentum of an entire series shift. Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley had to physically restrain Starks afterward, while Riley pointed him toward the tunnel like a parent sending a misbehaving child to his room. Riley was absolutely furious in his post-game press conference. That is Riley's speak for my point guard just lost his damn mind on national television, and I'm questioning all my life choices right now. Riley had built his entire coaching philosophy around discipline and execution, and here was Starks completely melting down in a crucial playoff game. But that momentary insanity from Starks became the spark that ignited one of the basketball's greatest rivalries. The Knicks managed to regroup and close out the series in Game 4, with Doc Rivers putting together one of those veteran point guard performances that remind you why experience matters in the playoffs. Rivers scored 21 points, including 16 in the final 8 minutes, to help New York escape with a 109-100 overtime victory. Charles Smith, always the voice of brutal honesty, captured the Knicks' feelings perfectly. Smith nailed the Knicks' fundamental problem right there. They had this bizarre tendency to abandon what was working the moment they got comfortable. It is like they had a self-destruct button they couldn't help but push whenever they got ahead by double digits. For Indiana, it was end of their season, but the beginning of something much bigger. For New York, it was merely the first step in what they hoped would be a championship run. What neither team realized was this brief first round encounter was merely the opening chapter in what would become an epic 3 year saga that would define both franchises. Fast forward 1 year, and everything had changed. Michael Jordan was chasing fly balls in Birmingham instead of championships in Chicago, which meant the Eastern Conference was suddenly wide open for the first time since the late 1980s. There was the throne, and every contender was measuring themselves for the crown. The Knicks had spent the entire season preparing for this moment, their best chance yet to reach the NBA Finals without having to go through his airness. Meanwhile, the Pacers had undergone their own transformation under new coach Larry Brown, the basketball nomad who had the habit of showing up in random cities and immediately making everyone better at basketball. Brown was perfect coach for Indiana, a defense first, no nonsense guy who could take a collection of role players and mold them into a legitimate contender. Donnie Walsh, the Pacers president, understood exactly what they were trying to accomplish. Walsh was basically saying, "You're copying your homework, New York, and we're not even trying to hide it." The Pacers were following the exact blueprint Riley had used to transform the Knicks. Pair a talented center with a dynamic guard, surround them with a tough role players, let a disciplined coach make it all work. By this point, the Spike Lee Reggie Miller dynamic had evolved into its own fascinating subplot. Spike would show up in his orange Knicks gear, sitting courtside like he was directing his own personal basketball movie, while Miller used every one of Spike's gestures and comments as fuel for his performance. It was the NBA's strangest celebrity athlete relationship playing out in real time on national television. Game 1 set the tone for another physical grinding series. The Knicks jumped out on an early lead behind Patrick Ewing's dominance, but the Pacers refused to go away quietly. Rick Smits, the 7'4" center from the Netherlands, who looked like he should be playing in a EuroLeague game somewhere, suddenly started playing like a legitimate all-star, scoring 27 points and going to toe-to-toe with Ewing. We were talking about Rick Smits here, the dunking Dutchman, the guy who looked like he'd rather be at home reading a book than playing in the NBA Finals. But there he was, hitting turnaround jumpers and hook shots like he was channeling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The Knicks still managed to win 189, thanks largely to a clutch three-pointer from Hubert Davis. But Indiana had sent a message. They were not intimidated by the Garden or the moment. Game 2 belonged to the Knicks defense, which completely suffocated Reggie Miller in a dominant 89-78 victory. Miller managed just 10 points on 3 for 10 shooting, blocking lost against New York's switching defense and John Starks' relentless pressure. Even Larry Brown had to admit that Miller's mouth had gotten him in trouble. That's coach speak for my shooting guard needs to shut up and focus on basketball instead of trying to out trash talk the entire city of New York. Brown was old school to his core. He wanted his players to let their play do the talking, but Reggie couldn't help himself. Trash talking wasn't just a part of his game, it was his superpower. The series shifted to Indianapolis for Game 3 and 4, and everything changed. In Game 3, Patrick Ewing, the anchor of the Knicks defense, their best player, their franchise cornerstone, scored exactly 1 point. One single point. Let me repeat that for emphasis. Patrick Ewing, in a playoff game, scored 1 point. It was the lowest scoring output of his entire NBA career, and it happened in the Eastern Conference Finals. Ewing was plagued by the foul trouble all game long, picking up cheap calls that had him sitting down on the bench while Rick Smits went to work. The Pacers destroyed New York 88-68. Ewing was genuinely frustrated afterward, which was rare for someone who usually kept his emotions in check. When Patrick Ewing starts complaining about officiating, you know things have gotten bad. This was a guy who typically took whatever the refs gave him and moved on. But he couldn't stay on the floor long enough to impact the game, and when he was playing, he couldn't find any rhythm. Game 4 brought more heartbreak for New York. The Knicks entering the fourth quarter, but somehow managed to blow it, losing 83-77 as the series deadlocked at 2-2. It was becoming a disturbing pattern. The Knicks would build a lead, then find creative ways to give it back when the pressure mounted. But Game 5 would go down as one of the greatest individual performances in NBA playoff history. May 18, 1994, Madison Square Garden. The series tied 2-2. The Knicks leading by 12 points entering the fourth quarter. Everything set up perfectly for New York to take control. Enter Reggie Miller. What happened over the next 12 minutes transcended basketball and crossed into realm of pure theater. Miller erupted for 25 points in the fourth quarter, outscoring the entire Knicks team while single-handedly stealing a game that seemed completely out of reach. When Miller described being in that kind of zone, his explanation was perfect. That is as accurate a description of athletic transcendence as you'll ever hear. When you're that locked in, it is like you're playing a completely different game than everyone else. Time slows down, the basket looks enormous, every defensive rotation becomes predictable. After drilling yet another three-pointer, Miller turned toward Spike Lee, who had been jawing at him all game from his courtside seat, and made the infamous choke gesture, rubbing his hand around his throat. The NBA's ultimate villain was born in that moment, and you could feel 8 million New Yorkers simultaneously throwing things at their televisions. Lester Connor, the Pacers' backup point guard, revealed the full story afterward. See, this is what people didn't understand at that time. Spike Lee wasn't getting in Miller's head, he was focusing him. All that courtside trash talk wasn't a distraction, it was motivation. Reggie needed someone to prove wrong, someone to silence him. And Spike, in his orange Knicks gear, pointing and screaming and waving his arms, became the perfect target. The Pacers stunned the Garden crowd 93-86, taking a 3-2 series lead back to Indianapolis. Miller's post-game comments revealed just how personal this had become. This wasn't just basketball talk anymore. Miller was essentially admitting that his earlier respectful competitive persona had been an act. The real Reggie was this trash-talking, spike-towning force of nature who lived to silence opposing crowd and break the hearts of the superstars. The Knicks were one loss away from elimination, facing the very real possibility that their best championship opportunity in 2 decades was about to slip away. The pressure on Patrick Ewing was immense. This might be his best chance to win the title that eluded him throughout his career. But in Game 6 at Market Square Arena, the Knicks showed exactly why they'd been one of the league's best teams all season. Ewing delivered a dominant 25-point, 15-rebound performance, while the Knicks defense held Miller without a field goal for 3 quarters in a convincing 92-82 victory. Even Miller had to give credit where it was due. Coming from Miller, that was the ultimate compliment. Their personal battle had become the series within the series, with every possession turning into a psychological warfare. Starks was fighting to stay disciplined and not let Miller bait him into another meltdown, while Miller was trying to find any weakness he could exploit. As the teams headed back to New York for Game 7, Ewing made a simple promise to the waiting media: "See you Sunday." Just 3 words, but it carried the weight of an entire franchise championship hopes. It was like Babe Ruth calling a shot. If Babe Ruth has been carrying the expectations of 8 million people on his shoulders. Game 7, MSG, winner advanced to the NBA Finals. Loser goes home to contemplate what might have been. The game was everything you'd expect from these two teams. A brutal defensive struggle where every possession felt like it lasted an hour. With 26.9 seconds remaining, the Knicks trailed by 2 when John Starks missed a driving layup. In that moment, it looked like another season was about to end in heartbreak for New York. But Patrick Ewing, soaring through the air like he was 22 years old again, grabbed the rebound and slammed it home to give Knicks the lead. It was the kind of play that defines careers, the franchise player making the play when everything is on the line. Pat Riley's reaction said it all. Simple words, but loaded with meaning. After years of criticism about not being clutch enough, about not being able to win the big one, he was Ewing's coach, acknowledging that when it matters the most, the big man delivered. The Pacers had one final chance, but Reggie Miller's desperation three-pointer missed. The Knicks had survived, advancing to the NBA Finals with a 94-90 victory that left the entire garden shaking. For Indiana, it was a devastating end to a breakthrough season. For New York, it was vindication, but not yet satisfaction. They still needed 4 more wins against Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets to capture that elusive championship. The Knicks would ultimately move the finals in 7 games, but their epic struggle with the Pacers had established something special.
Michigan has some of the most poorly funded roads and bridges in the country. You see the results whenever you drive to work, take the kids to school, or head out on vacation. We count on these roads to drive our economy and keep us safe. It's time to invest in them. Tell our leaders in Lansing to produce a plan that serves our state. Bad roads demand big solutions. Take action at fixmistate.org. Paid for by the Michigan Infrastructure and Transportation Association.
My family disfigured my face and spread a disgusting rumor about me. But I turned the tables by marrying the most eligible bachelor.
Where on earth have you been? Your father must have gone mad if he allowed you to leave this house.
Mother,
Your mother left you. Neither you nor your father seem to realize the suffering it's caused me to put up with you.
I'm sorry.
Your presence drains me. I'm tired of seeing that revolt.
One of the NBA's premier rivalries, built on mutual respect and genuine dislike. 12 months later, fate brought these teams together again for what would become the rubber match of their trilogy. Both teams had changed, but the animosity remained as strong as ever. This wasn't just a playoff series anymore. This was a blood feud with basketball uniforms. Patrick Ewing was now 32 years old, still chasing that first championship ring, while his body slowly betrayed him. Nagging calf injuries limited his mobility, and you could see the mileage adding up with each game. All those battles in the paint, all those playoff wars were starting to take their toll. Rick Smith's being diplomatically honest captured what everyone could see. Translation: Patrick wasn't the same player anymore. The legs that had carried him through the decade of dominance were finally showing their age. Meanwhile, Reggie Miller had been completely transformed by the previous year's playoff battles. He was no longer just a talented shooter who could get hot. He had become Reggie Miller, complete with capital letters and italics. The Nick Killer, the Garden Silencer, the villain New York loved to hate more than anyone not named Bill Butler. His relationship with Spike Lee had evolved into this bizarre basketball theater of the absurd. Before games, they'd sometimes chat cordially, like old friends catching up. Then, the moment the ball was tipped, they'd transform into mortal enemies, with Lee standing and gesturing while seeking him out after big shots. It was like watching the strangest body cop movie ever made, where the cops actually wanted to arrest each other. Game 1 appeared to be following the same script as always, the Knicks building a comfortable lead at home, looking ready to steal home court advantage. With 18.7 seconds left, New York was up by 6 points. The newspapers were practically writing their Knicks take control headlines. What happened next still doesn't seem real, even decades later. First, Miller drained a quick three-pointer, cutting the lead to 3 with 16.4 seconds remaining. No big deal. Teams hit desperation threes all the time. But then, incredibly, Anthony Mason struggled with the inbound pass, and Miller swooped in like a basketball pickpocket, stealing the ball and immediately stepping back behind the three-point line. He was basically saying, "Thanks for the early Christmas present, Anthony." But the audacity of what happened next was off the charts. Instead of driving to the basket for a high percentage shot, Miller immediately stepped back for another three-pointer. That is confidence bordering on insanity. The kind of decision that either makes you a legend or gets you benched forever. The shot went in, tying the game at 105. After John Starks missed two crucial free throws, Miller grabbed the rebound, got fouled by Anthony Mason, and calmly sank both free throws to complete one of the most impossible comebacks in playoffs history. 8 points in 16.4 seconds. The Garden went from deafening to dead silent in less than 20 seconds of the game time. As Miller headed toward the tunnel, he reportedly screamed, "Choke artists!" at the Knicks bench. And when he ran past Spike Lee, he looked right at him and repeated the same choke gesture from the previous year. The student had become the master, and he wasn't going to let anyone forget it. John Starks, showing the kind of brutal honesty that made him beloved in New York, took full responsibility. That is what made Starks special. He'd rather take the blame himself than let his teammates share in his failure, but it also showed up how personally he took these battles with Miller. This wasn't just team versus team for him. It was a personal war that played out on basketball's biggest stage. The Knicks responded in Game 2, holding Miller to just 10 points in a dominant 96-77 victory, but the psychological damage was done. The Pacers had stolen home court advantage with one of the most spectacular thefts in NBA history. Larry Brown, always wary of Miller antics, tried to keep his star player focused. That is Brown's diplomatic way of telling Reggie to shut up and play basketball, but Miller couldn't help himself. The trash talk was as much a part of his identity as his jump shot. When the series shifted to Indianapolis, the Pacers seized complete control, taking both games to put the Knicks in a 3-1 hole. Smith's continued viewing problems, while New York's offense sputtered at all the wrong moments. The Knicks were one loss away from elimination, facing odds that seemed almost impossible to overcome. Only four teams at that time in NBA history had ever come back from 3-1 deficit in the playoffs. This wasn't just an uphill battle, it was climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops during a blizzard. Pat Riley, facing the biggest challenge of his coaching career, delivered one of the most memorable speeches. This was peak Riley, the master motivator trying to will his team back from the brink through sheer force of personality. Say what you want about his coaching style, but when his team needed the inspiration most, Riley knew exactly which buttons to push. Back at Madison Square Garden for Game 5, the Knicks faced elimination with the kind of desperation that either breaks teams apart or forges them into something special. With 5.9 seconds left, and Indiana leading by one after a Byron Scott three-pointer, it looked like the season was over. But in a moment that perfectly mirrored the Game 7 victory from the previous year, Patrick Ewing took the inbound pass, spun into the lane, and hit a soft one-hander with 1.8 seconds remaining to save the Knicks season. For that moment, maybe he was. And you had to love Patrick. Usually so serious, so burdened by expectations, could crack a joke after hitting the biggest shot of the season. The pressure might have been crushing him, but he wasn't going to show it. Spike Lee and Reggie Miller's ongoing feud reached new heights during Game 5. Lee had been chanting Cheryl, Cheryl at
There's a big difference between pretty good performance and superior performance. Castrol full synthetic oils are engineered to perform in 7 critical areas, so you can go farther between oil changes. Castrol, better oil, stronger for longer.
The hardest R&D meetings are the meeting after you launch the best product you've ever launched. So we're going to make you hit TSR first. TSR was our most successful driver ever. Having played TSR close to 2 years, I was skeptical that they were going to make it better. That was your TSR. Let's show you GT. When you want to create something that can truly rise above, the challenge never ends. Each generation has to be faster, longer, straighter. Gotta have better looks, sound, and feel. Gotta have all of it. With GT, we've had a breakthrough. Oh my word, that was nice. How do you do that?
In order to get faster from TSR, we had to save some weight. And the only way to do that was to break out of an all-titanium construction.
And so one of the first things we really had to tackle was the crown design. This is the titanium part of the body, and then this crown piece is something that's absolutely unique to the industry. Is that actually how light it is? So it's about 12 grams. It's a third of the mass of titanium.
The challenge was that we needed to find a material that not only saved weight, but also provided really good acoustics.
Ultimately, we developed this proprietary matrix polymer to create the seamless thermoform crown. This advanced material really closely mimics an all-titanium product. I just want you guys to go ahead and drop it on the countertop.
It's more metallic than I would have expected. It's really strong, it's really light, and most importantly, it sounds like metal, even though it's not.
George, what would you expect it to sound like? Just like as you look at those components, what would you expect it to sound like?
Make the noise. Oh my gosh.
This new material in the thermoform crown allowed us to create the split mass construction.
So you can have a CG a little more forward to help on-center performance, but still have mass toward the back of the club to maintain stability.
And so you get optimal spin and launch, more distance, and straighter ball flight.
Pretty good miss there. Slightly healed, but that did not spin like it was slightly healed. The second it comes off the face, you're like, oh man.
Everything in GT is amplified by SpeedRing VFT. SpeedRing allows us to constrain the perimeter of the face, maximizing your ball speed on center. The VFT pattern allows us to discreetly bend the face, expanding that sweet spot. Ultimately,
Miller, mocking him about his more famous sister. Miller's response afterward was telling. Sometimes Spike opened his mouth a little too much and gets the guy going. It was the NBA's strangest celebrity relationship, playing out on national television with millions of people watching two grown men try to psychologically destroy each other through basketball. Game 6 in Indianapolis, became another test of the Knicks' survival instincts. The tension was so high that Anthony Mason and Charles Smith got into a heated argument on the bench during the second quarter. This wasn't a team in perfect harmony. This was a group of veterans who knew their championship window was closing fast. Riley understood exactly what his team needed. Sometimes that edge is exactly what you need when your back is against the wall. Riley knew his team's intensity was both their greatest strength and their biggest weakness. They needed that fire to survive, even if it occasionally burned each other in the process. That emotional intensity fueled the Knicks to a 92-82 victory, forcing a decisive Game 7 back at Madison Square Garden against all odds. These two teams were going to meet for another winner-take-all showdown. May 21, 1995, almost exactly 1 year after the previous Game 7 battle, the Knicks and Pacers prepared for another fight to the death. The basketball gods apparently decided one Game 7 between these teams wasn't enough drama for everyone involved. Miller came out firing, scoring 29 points through three quarters to give the Pacers lead heading into the final period. Each time he'd make a big shot, he'd look over Spike Lee, who was uncharacteristically quiet. Even Spike seems to realize that owning Miller at this point was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Ewing fighting through his leg injuries and the weight of an entire city's expectations, countered with 29 points and 14 rebounds to keep Knicks within striking distance. This was like watching two heavyweight boxers in the 15th round, both exhausted but too proud to go down. With 118 left, Rick Smith hit a 14-footer to give Pacers a 97-92 lead. For a moment, it looked like Indiana was finally going to break through, but the Knicks rallied, pulling within two on John Starks' three-pointer with 32.3 seconds remaining. After getting a defensive stop, the Knicks had one final chance with 5 seconds left. Derek Harper's inbound pass found Ewing near top of the key, almost exact same spot from which he had won Game 5. Ewing spun past Derek McKee and drove hard to the basket. The lane was open. The shot, a finger roll rather than a dunk, looked perfect leaving his hand. Sometimes the difference between immortality and heartbreak is measured in millimeters. Patrick chose finesse when power might have been a better option. But it was a split-second decision that athletes replay in their minds for the rest of their lives. The ball hit the back rim and bounced out as time expired. The Pacers erupted in celebration. After two consecutive years of playoff elimination at the hands of the Knicks, Indiana had finally broken through. For Reggie Miller, it was the sweetest revenge possible. For Patrick Ewing, it was another cruel chapter in his quest for a championship that would never come. Pat Riley would never coach another game.
Why disrupt production when you can adapt on the go? Technology to transform the everyday.
Meet Bill and Will, two friends who are very much alike. They listen to the same music, share the same sense of style, and even hit the same dance moves. They truly are one and the same. Until they're not. Bill is enjoying the night of his life. Will,
The Knicks, leaving for Miami that summer to start over with a new team and new challenges. Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, and John Starks would all eventually move on as well. The roster that had come so close to greatness was dismantled piece by piece. Over three consecutive postseasons, the Knicks and Pacers gave basketball fans a rivalry that defined what playoff basketball should be: intense, personal, and absolutely unforgettable. This was the NBA's version of Ali Frazier, with each battle somehow more epic than the last. For Patrick Ewing, these series represented both the pinnacle and the nadir of his Hall of Fame career. He showed off his greatness in Game 7 moments, but but also his limitations when his body finally betrayed him. The finger roll that bounced up will haunt Knicks fans forever, but it shouldn't overshadow everything Ewing accomplished in those 3 years. For Reggie Miller, the rivalry transformed him to a merely a talented shooter into a basketball icon, the type of villain that every great sports story needs. Without the Knicks as his foil, Miller might have been just another good player who could get hot. Against them, he became legendary. The John Starks Reggie Miller subplot became one of the most compelling individual rivalries in NBA history. Their trash talking battles represented everything great about playoff basketball: the personal stakes, psychological warfare, the way individual matchups can define the entire series. And Spike Lee's involvement added a cultural dimension that made this rivalry transcend sports entirely. The Miller Lee dynamic, from courtside taunts to choke gestures to grudging respect, turned basketball games into a performance art. Charles Smith, always the voice of reason, captured how the Knicks felt about Miller perfectly. These 3 years, Miller proved he was much more than a front runner. He was a legitimate star who could back up his talk when it matters most, even if it meant breaking the hearts of an entire city in the process. Each series represented more than just basketball. They were a clash of cultures, big market glamour versus small market determination, the heartland taking on the capital of the basketball world. They were stories of redemption, heartbreak, heroism, and revenge, all wrapped up in 48-minute packages that left everyone emotionally exhausted. The 1993-95 chapters of the Knicks-Pacers rivalry represent NBA playoff basketball at its absolute finest, where the margins between victory and defeat, between glory and despair, can be measured in fractions of inches and tenths of seconds. But this wasn't the end of the story. After a 3 year intermission, these teams would reunite for another trilogy of playoff battles that would prove every bit as dramatic as the first. The four-point play, the Larry Johnson shot, the eight-seeded Knicks' miraculous run, the Pacers-Knicks rivalry was far from over. It was just taking a breather before the next act began.
Over half of Americans aren't saving enough for retirement. 82% of people in the U.S. leave money on the table by not taking advantage of a high yield account. Take your money to the next level with high yield cash. If you're one of the 57% of people that only use a low interest account, you could sign up for Robinhood Gold. Only 10% of Americans have an IRA, and 9% have a brokerage account. Get a match on qualifying contributions into your IRA with Robinhood Gold. Sign up now for just $5 a month and get the first 30 days free.
Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. The Clippers have shown an impressive array of abilities in round 2, taking the series in only 5 games. Tonight, we will find out if they can keep that momentum going against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Western Conference Finals, right here, right now.
Two Western teams have run the gauntlet. Only one can emerge victorious to claim a spot.
Have you ever seen those ads where you're like playing as the soldier going left to right and you get like the -1, +2? Well, it looks like a lot of fun.
I want to talk about this subject for the 1,000,000,000th time. Did the Clippers make a mistake trading away SGA for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? And the reason why I say Kawhi Leonard because a lot of people forget without Paul George in that trade, SGA or Kawhi Leonard was not coming to the Clippers. You know what that means? That means the Clippers would have still been a mediocrity team that couldn't make it past second round or a laughing stock of the NBA. If Kawhi Leonard does not get a second star to come with him, he would not come to the Clippers. He probably would still be in Toronto or he would find a way to go to another team. That's what the situation was. He just won a championship in Toronto. He understood how the league was going. It was dynamic duos. He needed a second star, right? It was not subjective of him to continuously go through that route like he did in Toronto, playing without a second co-star the way the league was running. That's one thing. Number two, SGA is a good player who has developed into a great player. He's the MVP. He's been averaging 30 points per game the last 3 seasons. All that's true. I respect the story. But people forget he's been in the league for 7 years. He's 26 years old. What he has done has been in a development stage. He hasn't been in the league for 3 years. He was been in the league for 7. So what was going on those first 4 years of his career? The first year in LA, coming off the bench, I thought the Clippers traded him. He goes to OKC the first year with Chris Paul.
In the finals. Game 1 of the Western. You look at the Clippers. It was a long, grueling series for them, Greg, in the conference semifinals. Will that impact, though, their energy level tonight?
Well, I mean, make it to the playoffs in the West. The reason why the OKC Thunder are where they are is not because of SGA, it's because of all those picks the Clippers gave for SGA. Now, I do agree with this. They did go a little bit overboard with those picks. I don't think it would have took 7 picks for them to get Paul George. If you ask me if I would have traded Paul George for SGA straight up, I'm doing that trade 1,000 of 1,000 times. What Paul George did in 2021, SGA could not have done, taking us to the conference finals. He was not prepared. And that's what SGA was going to have to ask to be due because Kawhi Leonard was out for 4 straight postseasons in a row. So without that, they're not winning anything as long as Kawhi Leonard's on that court. And that's where it starts, ends, and begins. It's not about no damn trade. It's about the best player not being available at the most unexpected times. If Kawhi Leonard's on the court,
there's enough time between games in the playoffs, and that shouldn't be any excuse. On their home court, they're the better team throughout the regular season. Now it's time to go out and show it.
So here's Oklahoma City's starting group. Before in the
top 3 defensive player of the year and pass that up over a rookie because a guy in Doc Rivers ain't won a goddamn thing since 2010 with a super team. in Boston told you to. Why is a two-time champion? He knows what it takes to win. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that Lawrence Frank won the Executive of the Year.
earned $60,000. The Phoenix Suns have always danced with greatness, but never held it. With Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, they lit up the NBA, fast, fearless, and just one step away from a title. But every time they got close, it slipped away. No championship, just what ifs. When that era ended, so did the winning. Years of darkness followed with only one bright light, Devin Booker, a young star shining alone in a lost team. Then came hope. Chris Paul joined, and in 2021, the Suns were back. 2 wins from their first ever championship, but heartbreak struck again. Then the team became packed with stars, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, yet somehow a title feels further than ever. For Suns fans, it's more than basketball. It's about how many times you can believe after so much pain. This is the story of the Phoenix Suns. Hope, heartbreak, and a dream that never came true. Devin Booker emerged as a beacon of hope during the Suns' darkest years. When they drafted an 18-year-old Devin Booker in 2015, he was a rare bright spot for a franchise that was stuck in a downward spiral. Booker quickly showed flashes of brilliance, even exploding for 70 points in one game. But these individual efforts were not enough to rescue Phoenix from being one of the worst teams in the NBA. Season after season, the losses piled up. These guys couldn't buy a win. They went through head coaches the way Zion goes through porn stars, who were in search of an identity. In 2016, Phoenix were eliminated from playoff contention for the 6th straight year, marking the longest postseason drought in team history. These years were defined by nothing more than chaos and disappointment. Players were literally forcing their way out, like Markieff Morris and Eric Bledsoe, who famously tweeted, "I don't want to be here," before being shipped off. In the 2017-2018 season, the Suns only won 21 games. They got high draft picks because they were so bad, but no progress was ever made with them. Bender, Marquise Chris, Josh Jackson, none of them elevated the Suns. Even when Booker turned into a 20-plus point per game scorer, and their first real top...
The lengthy pair of Holmgren and Hartenstein. Gilgeous-Alexander runs things with Dort to his side. And it's Williams at the 3, the small forward. Gilgeous-Alexander, good.
Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander continues to hone in. When he's draining threes, he's almost unguardable.
Leonard, the pass to Jones, taken away by Williams. On the wing, Gilgeous-Alexander. And again, Oklahoma City with the triple.
Good way to start this game. You want to get him rolling as early as possible.
He's a guy who, if he gets hot, he can carry your offense for long stretches.
It's stolen by Dort. It's Gilgeous-Alexander at the elbow. And again, it's Oklahoma City.
Well, that's a quick strike from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. In catch-and-shoot situations, those scoring instincts are right on point.
Harden the pass to Leonard. To end the run, and he sinks the layup.
And the combination of his quickness and soft touch around the rim really allows him to pull off shots like that. A lot of players don't have the reverse in their arsenal.
With a short break in the action, gives us a chance now to send it over to David Aldridge.
Well, Tyronn Lue and I had a few minutes to share. He said SGA has this special ability to lull a defender into a slower pace and then suddenly make a quick move that leaves everybody just standing there. Coach feels the attention has to be on him. He wants to force somebody else to beat them. Guys?
All right, thank you, David. Here's Dort. Outside Williams. From outside, off the mark. Clippers have gone 2 or 3 here to start out the game. Harden outside to the inside. Zubac the pass to Harden. Clock at 6. Jones with the screen on Holmgren. No good that time. Good D by Gilgeous-Alexander. Oh, he really broke up that transition opportunity. Looks like it'll be a transition take foul. Oklahoma City shooting their first free throw of the evening.
What you love about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is this young man's work ethic. He is a gym rat who's always looking for ways to improve.
Alex Caruso, he's checked in for Dort. Williams can't get it to go. Clippers trail by 5. Pass to Harden. Leonard kicks to Harden. The Clippers need to get off a shot. Leonard with no one around. Wide open shot is on the money. Leonard's got his second bucket of the night.
Well, ready on the catch. Your pre-shot preparation is on point. Kawhi, the catch and shoot.
Holmgren gets the bucket.
Just setting the tone with an aggressive move to the rack. And where's the help defensively?
To me, that's a complete lack of communication on that side of the ball. These guys need to be talking to each other.
And the timeout called here by Tyronn Lue. He's ready to talk things through with the team. Chris Dunn's checked in for Derek Jones. And Oklahoma City with a change here too. Isaiah Joe, he's checked in for Holmgren. Harden looking it over. And too much time in the lane. They get called for the 3-second violation. Here are the NBA's top scorers during this postseason as shown on the 2K leaderboard. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, third.
And he's taken off on a tremendous scoring streak at the perfect time. I mean, obviously, he's established himself as a premier playoff performer.
Catching up on the changes for Oklahoma City. Williams, he's checked in for Hartenstein. And it's Chet Holmgren in for Gilgeous-Alexander.
Well, you look at Kawhi's career, one of the first things he did was work on his consistency from the free throw line. Why? Because he's excellent at drawing contact.
The Clippers shooting their first free throws of the game right now. Wallace is checked in for Jalen Williams. And the second free throw, good. There's 48 seconds left here in the first quarter. Pass to Williams. And Williams throws it down.
Oh, taking it to the rack with power.
And hammering down the two-hand slam. Zubac's a screen on Caruso. Harden. Another shot. And that'll be 2 free throws coming up. Officials on the call with the foul.
Make no mistake, with that frame and that touch, Zubac's a tough cover in close.
No good on the free throw. Good on the second free throw.
What you love about Ivica Zubac is he knows who he is. Big, strong body, mixes it up on the glass, sets solid screens. Just an understanding of who he is.
3-second difference between shot clock and game clock. Here's Wallace. Good on the three. Point shot.
Really well done there. Just confident and composed, never in a hurry.
Now Harden. And he drains the three, but let's see. They may need to review it. I'm not sure the ball was out of his hand in time. And it looks like
the previous play is under review.
The basket off in time.
And guys, big games like this in the NBA playoffs, you appreciate the benefit of instant replay to make sure they get the call right.
The ruling on the floor is confirmed.
And they're keeping the call as is. It was close, but he had not released it before the clock had expired.
Yeah, still better safe.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, guys, has been on display for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He finishes with 9 points in the quarter. The D is having all sorts of problems with him. Back right after this. And we're ready to get back into the action here in Game 1. Let's see what this quarter has in store for us. And, guys, let's get your take on the scoring breakdown for Oklahoma City.
Well, they haven't wasted any time getting into a groove from deep, putting up and hitting a healthy amount of three-pointers thus far.
Yeah, they've also been alert and active on the defensive end, creating turnovers and turning those into points on the offensive end.
On the floor for Oklahoma City, getting going here in the second quarter. Chet Holmgren out there with Williams. Then there's Isaiah Joe. And it's Alex Caruso. And it's Wallace in at the point. Dort, he's checked in for Oklahoma City. And it's Leonard missing.
Well, we didn't see the same kind of control we're used to seeing from him. This guy is usually a tremendous finisher.
Holmgren the pass to Dort. Now Joe. Oklahoma City moving the ball around. Dort against Harden. Puts up a deep three. Dort misses. And it's Jones with the ball for the Clippers. They haven't allowed any points in the second quarter. Zubac finds Leonard. Here's Harden. It's rebounded by Oklahoma City.
And the way he was able to reach out towards that release had an impact.
Well, no question. He altered that shot, and most of the time, that's just as good as blocking it.
Clippers trail by 8. Right side, Leonard. Zubac trying to break loose. And Leonard gets it to go. Leonard's got 7 points in the game.
Toughness and tenacity very much describe Kawhi Leonard's game.
Pass to Holmgren. Dort against Powell. Outside, Dort. Here he goes. And the rejection by Zubac.
What a great defensive play by Ivica Zubac. This guy just gives you great effort defensively.
Leonard dishes to Powell. Back to Leonard. Fires the three. Leonard, so dangerous from deep.
This team relies on that shot from Kawhi.
Jalen Williams is checked in for Oklahoma City. Gilgeous-Alexander comes in for Isaiah Joe. Here in the second quarter, we've played a little over 2.5 minutes now. Caruso kicks to Gilgeous-Alexander. Williams a screen on Jones. And again, Oklahoma City, no good. Clippers trail by 3. Inside, pass to Zubac. Left side, Jones. Harden with it. Back to Jones. Over in the corner, Zubac. Here's Harden, and they force the shot. Clock violation. Great deep. And the timeout called here by Tyronn Lue. He wants a minute here to get things straightened out with his team. Just under 3.5 minutes played here in the second quarter. Outside, Dort. Gilgeous-Alexander passes to Dort. Here's Williams, and it's James Harden with the rebound.
Oh, no excuse for a guy of his caliber. You've got to finish that slam. Got to be a little embarrassed by that one.
Well, you don't want to see Norman Powell settling for outside looks. Love when he goes to work down deep.
It's stolen by Gilgeous-Alexander. Williams passes to Caruso. And 2 free throws coming up, unable to get that one to go with all the contact. It's going to go on Norman Powell.
Clearly a foul.
This is his first chance at the line tonight. For the Thunder, Hartenstein, he's checked in for Williams. And it's Holmgren in for Williams. Powell kicks to Harden. There's 57 seconds left here in the second. Outside Leonard. Back to Harden. Outside Leonard. Clock at 4. No good. That would have tied it.
And this is a shot he can definitely make, and the defense not a factor at all.
Pass to Holmgren. And he gets the whistle for the 3-second call. Jalen Williams is checked in for the Thunder.
Oh, boy.
Clippers have gone 4 of 7 from the field in this second quarter so far. Dort against Harden. Leonard looking over the floor. Zubac with the screen for Leonard. That misses, had a chance to tie it there. Here's Dort, and he dunks it down.
And he's an automatic finisher when he gets into that area.
He is, and he picks the simple one-hand stuff to get the 2 points. And the timeout called here by Tyronn Lue. He wants to check in with his team and regroup. 7 seconds left to play in the first half. There's a screen. Bogdanovich, that's for 2. He knocks it down, but wait a minute. The officials are getting together. They may want to review this one.
The previous play is under review.
Just yet, officials signaling they are going to review the tape.
And guys, big games like this in the NBA playoffs, you appreciate the benefit of instant replay to make sure they get the call right.
After the review, the ruling on the floor is overturned.
And the call is going to be overturned. The second look shows that he did, in fact, beat the clock.
Yeah, they're glad they're going to get those points.
Thanks, David. And we'll be back shortly following halftime to get the third quarter underway.
Welcome, everybody, to our Game 1 coverage. It's a tight one indeed for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Without the points they've gotten off the bench, this game wouldn't be as close as it is. Can you count on that in the second half? It's debatable, man.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting postseason for the Clippers. The conference. And that's all for us. Now it's...
Goodness.
What an atmosphere in here as we return to the action of the Western Conference Finals. You have to like what we're seeing so far from Kawhi Leonard.
And how about the amount he's contributing in the scoring column through 2 quarters? He has been terrific.
And one would expect that the defense made some adjustments at halftime, but he has the ability to answer right back.
The guard pair, it's Harden and Powell. Down in the block, it'll be Kawhi next to Zubac. And it's Jones in at the 3. That's the group starting the second half for Tyronn Lue. Shot from free throw range. Gilgeous-Alexander can't get it to go. And it's the Clippers ball for the lead. And it's Leonard missing. And so it's Williams who brings it up for the Thunder. Double team on Gilgeous-Alexander. Hartenstein passes to Gilgeous-Alexander. The second chance effort. Hartenstein can't get it to go.
Well, I guarantee you this is not what they talked about in the locker room. 0 for 3 and looking lost.
For Oklahoma City, they've gone 0 for 3 and are still looking for that first bucket here in the second half. Pass to Dort. Some nice passing by Oklahoma City here. The shot's good from Gilgeous-Alexander.
Well, let's remember that at 6'6", Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can more than handle himself near the cup.
Outside Leonard. Just over a minute and a half played here in the third. And the shot is good, dropping in off the front of the rim. Leonard's got it all tied up now for the Clippers. And the dunk by Hartenstein.
We are talking about a 6'6" point guard. Shea has got a great view of the floor. What an easy pass.
Zubac, a screen on Dort. And Leonard has it in the corner. Zubac kicks to Harden. Shot clock at 6. Zubac, a screen on Dort. Beats the shot clock but can't get it to fall.
That is some tough defense there against one of the better finishers in our game.
Holmgren sets the screen for Williams. Lets it go from 11. Again, Oklahoma City.
Oh, what a nice stroke from the mid-range for Jalen Williams, making you pay.
And the timeout called here by Tyronn Lue. He's going to have a discussion here on the sideline. And the Thunder making a switch here. Caruso's checked in. Harden outside. Pass to Powell. The tray. That shot missing. Oklahoma City leading by 4. Over in the corner, Caruso. Good, and it's Williams who picks up the assist. Caruso's got his second bucket tonight.
You know, he could have looked to score that himself, but in this particular instance, the advantage is playing inside out.
Pass to Powell. Zubac with the screen for Powell. That one's off, still out of sync. Oklahoma City's gotten fewer than half of their three-pointers to go down tonight. They're 4 for 9. Now Williams. Gilgeous-Alexander with it. Defended by Jones. Shoots. And Oklahoma City again with the bucket.
Well, this guy flat out carrying the load for them offensively. He is taking and making good shots. What a terrific job. Extremely fortunate they didn't lose the ball there.
And the Thunder with some changes. Williams comes in for Isaiah Hartenstein. And it's Isaiah Joe in for Jalen Williams. Here's Leonard. Leonard chewing him up inside.
Well, Kawhi Leonard right now is cooking, folks. This guy has got a rhythm, and you better watch out.
The Thunder leading by 7. Gilgeous-Alexander passes to Holmgren. Holmgren the screen. Right side, Gilgeous-Alexander. Caruso kicks to Gilgeous-Alexander. A chance there to push it to double digits, but it's off the mark.
Well, he had the defense's attention, dropping 2 threes in the first half, but he hasn't made one since.
And you know what? Saved what was likely to be a dunk.
And this is his second trip to the line in the game. That one is off.
Watching Kawhi enter the league as a lockdown defender and now become an all-around champion. Boy, what a career he has had.
And Oklahoma City making a change here. Wallace is checked in. Joe passes to Holmgren. Wallace outside. Holmgren with a screen on Harden. And it's going to be out of bounds. The Thunder will retain possession. Nobody near Williams. Connects from three-point range. Williams has got the lead up to 9 now for the Thunder. And the timeout called here by Tyronn Lue. And coach has decided they need a moment to talk things over. .11 seconds left in the third. Done outside. Bogdanovich, that's for 2. And so it's Oklahoma City ahead by 9 as the quarter comes to a close. And against... And let's take now this moment to bring up our State Farm assist of the game.
And I'm glad this was the pick because I love this pass. Such a great dish. That's what I call court vision.
Well, making the game easy for your teammates. All about putting them in a position to score. That's pretty.
And this is it. Glad to have you along for this fourth and final quarter. And Oklahoma City, looking who they've got to start the fourth quarter. Dort and Williams up in the forward positions. Alex Caruso out there with Isaiah Joe. And it's Williams at the center position. Outside Bogdanovich. Here's Eubanks. Just 5 to shoot. And Bogdanovich kicks to Dunn. That fall. Nice feed that time from Bogdanovich. Dunn's got himself on the board with 3 there. Williams against Batum. Lets it go from 11. Misses off the left iron. Clippers trail by 6. It's a nice passing here by Los Angeles. Bogdanovich with it to the middle. Here's Eubanks.
I tell you what, he is one guy you do not stand in the way of when he decides to attack the basket.
To the paint. Here's Caruso. And he jams it after taking the nice feed on the run.
The D just kind of stepping aside and letting him get to the rim.
There's a reason, GA, the lead is what it is right now.
I tell you, you can't get stops if you're unwilling to put in the work.
And the Clippers with a whole new lineup now. And then for Oklahoma City, Hartenstein's checked in for Williams. Holmgren comes in for Williams. And Gilgeous-Alexander is subbed in for Isaiah Joe. Here's Leonard. That one off the back iron and out.
Well, tremendous defensive effort on the interior. That's the kind of contest you want.
Here's Gilgeous-Alexander. Drops in the layup for 2. And the Thunder lead by 9.
There's so many ways Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can create for this offense. He's becoming one of the top scorers in the game.
Shooting foul as the whistle blows. He'll shoot 2 free throws.
And you know what? You allow a guy to get right to the rim like that. That's your only option.
And an important part of every team's game, a look at the hustle stats for the Thunder.
They're looking to attack in transition every time down the floor, just wearing the defense thin at this point.
I think it's also important we have to acknowledge how many scoring opportunities they've created from their spectacular defense, getting a bunch of points off turnovers.
And passing has made this guy next level. That's the element that has changed Gilgeous-Alexander's game.
And there's the call on Lou Dort. That is his first foul of the game. Here's Leonard.
That length of Holmgren is such a tool on defense.
And it's Leonard missing. And Williams with the stuff.
Attacking in transition.
Or head out on vacation. We count on these.
Tish, salute. She said, honestly, Trey Harding, Kawhi, and Kyle. Salute to my man, Andre 76. He said that was Kawhi 5 years ago. That's not him today. I disagree, but, you know, that's really you. He didn't look like that at the end of that this year. He had, like, the Clippers 15-3. It was off the back of what he was doing last year. Clippers probably hit it the season last year. Not how Kawhi was playing. So, I don't see where this is. I don't know where this comes from. First of all, let me just say this as well. If y'all notice the league, they're trying to find out who the best player is. Some people say it's Giannis, some people say it's Jokic, some people say Luke at one time, got SGA Surgeon, Anthony Edwards, Surgeon. Like, they don't really have a clear cut. Remember how they used to have a clear cut best player? When they had Kobe Bryant, when they had, LeBron, when they had, Steph Curry. So these are the guys that were the top 2, top 3. Now you got like 5, 6, 7 guys who are trying to take the mantle. Jason Tatum didn't get brought up. So you don't really have a clear cut number 1 anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, it's up for grabs with the best player. It's up for grabs with the top 5. You got to go by game, week by week, month by month basis damn near. Because there's really no dominant player in the league. There's really no dominant 3 players in the league. The players that dominate in the regular season seem to not be in the playoffs. They get exited out, right? You got Giannis, you got Jokic, you got SGA. These guys, for the most part, they've either, tasted the playoffs as far as deep runs, probably once, if not twice, not making deep runs into the playoffs. There's no say Kawhi is not the same that was 5 years ago, you got to look at just what happened at the end of the season this year and what happened last year. So I'm not really hearing none of that. But back to James Harden. The Clippers are looking to address his situation in the playoffs. Or not playoffs. They're looking to address his contract situation. So what is James Harden making right now? So we go back to something real quick. We pull up his contract. So and it says right here, James Harden. Is signed to a 2-year, $70 million contract with the Clippers, including $70 million guaranteed and an average salary of $35 million. In 2024-2025, Harden will earn a base salary of $33 million, which will, while carrying a cap hit of $33 million and a dead cap value of $33 million. Yeah, so basically, what y'all need to know is he's on a 2-year, $70 million